Welcome to the Parenting Power Podcast, supporting parents with the real-life tools they need to raise the confident, interdependent people the world needs. Gail Bell and Julie Friedman-Smith interview experts who share their knowledge to assist parents in creating a home environment where kids can thrive.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Life Parenting Podcast. This is Julie Friedman-Smith.
And I'm Gail Bell.
Our guest today is Julie Cole, co-founding vice president of Mabels Labels. We were so pleased to meet Julie last fall when we were presenting at the Ignite Burn Brighter Summit. We've been a fan of Mabels Labels for years, and while we listened to Julie's keynote speech, we knew we wanted to have her to be here on the podcast. Julie is the mother of 6 and has some wonderful ideas to share. Welcome, Julie.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Julie, we are really so pleased to be able to meet you. What led you to start Mabels Labels?
We started for a couple of reasons. First off, I should say I started it with 3 other women. So it was a partner group of 4 of us, which was very fun and tricky at times too. But we started for a couple of reasons. And one reason was that we discovered that there was a product missing from the marketplace. We were young moms, we had lots of little kids, and we found that we were labeling their things with masking tape and permanent marker, and it wasn't quite doing the trick. So we thought, well, we'll find something that'll do a better job of it, and we couldn't. So as good entrepreneurial mamas, we created the product. So that's the first point. We started the company because there was a product missing from the market. The second point was that, and for me specifically at that time, one of my children, my eldest child, had just been diagnosed with autism. He was 3 years old. And I was in the traditional workforce working as a lawyer, and I did not think that that would suit my family's lifestyle. I needed a little bit more flexibility. I wanted to get a good program going for my son. So that was probably the real catalyst there, was looking to leave the traditional workforce.
Well, we know how valuable your product was. I mean, it's everywhere. I don't know if it's really everywhere. There might be some place on the planet where Mabels Labels hasn't touched.
We like to think it's everywhere.
Most parents are aware of Mabels Labels. We've used them. In fact, now that our kids are grown, we're trying to get them off of things, and they won't come off. They don't come off. They're so good. It's such a great product.
I know. That is the secret sauce. They actually do what we say they're going to do, and that is be extremely durable. And really, kids will outgrow their clothes. They will stop using their bottles and sippy cups, and the label will far outlast their childhood, sadly.
Exactly. We know from listening to your story that creating this business for yourself really did allow you the opportunity to be involved with your family the way you wanted, and then as your family grew, it's continued to flourish as well. So it's really exciting to hear all about what you were doing.
Yeah, it's really amazing that it really worked out for us that way, that it was as Mabels grew and the business developed and flourished, so did my son, particularly with autism, which was the point of starting my own business, was to do this. And then, of course, I did have a bunch of other kids, so everyone kind of benefited.
Exactly, and that really parallels our story in a way, because when Gail and I started our company 17 years ago, we had very young children, and we wanted to be moms first and working people second, and we wanted to create a situation where we could be supporting other parents and also being with our family, and it has worked very well for us also. One of the things that we loved, you mentioned the enable table during your keynote speech, and we thought you were spot on about this, along with many other actions that adults are doing with children that they feel might be helping children, when in reality they are really getting in the way of healthy emotional development. Can you please share with our listeners what you have to say about the enable table?
Okay. Well, see, as a mom of 6 children, I learned very early on that if I do the short-term easy, which is doing things for them, what I'm doing is creating long-term hard, which means I'm going to have to keep doing it for them, and that's no good. So out of necessity, I did raise my kids to be smart, independent little humans because I needed them to be. And what I do find I see a lot of parents doing, and I'm tempted to do it myself sometimes, but I'm able to stop myself quite easily, honestly, is, we see a lot of parents swooping in and rescuing kids. And I'm a big believer in natural consequences. So when I talked about the enable table at the conference, I was talking about how I don't rescue my kids. So if I, for instance, have a child who forgets their lunch at home, I don't actually drop it off at the school. They can go hungry for one day. And honestly, nobody's starving. They're doing fine. They can usually find an apple or a granola bar. But what it does do, it means they only ever forget their lunches once. It makes them more responsible. And it's not a punishment. It's just that's what happens. As an adult, that's what happens too. You forget your lunch. Guess what? You don't have your lunch there. Whatever. They're going to be fine. And the same with if they forget their gym clothes. I don't drop off their gym clothes. They will have to sit out for a gym for one day. Or if they forget their project, and that means that they get 10% less because they ended in a day late, so be it. They should learn. They should lose that 10%. I'm not going to come in and save the 10% for them because I also have to be super productive. I have to get a lot done in my day, so I need my little people to be independent and to be able to be self-sufficient in those ways, and that's not asking too much. So, yeah, the enable table basically is what I call the table that is in every school office. It's like outside the secretary's office or beside her desk, and it's where parents come and drop off all the things for the children, the lost, the forgotten lunches, the forgotten mittens, the forgotten this, the forgotten that, and parents are spending their days chasing after their kids dropping this stuff off, and I call that the enable table because what you're doing is you're enabling your kids. You're making them not accountable for being organized and being independent and being responsible, and like I say, when I'm doing natural consequences, I'm not punishing my kids. It's just what happens.
It's real life.
It's real life. That's how it works, right? Yeah. Imagine that, real life.
Julie and I use that term real life a lot. Real life is not reality television shows. So we will continue to spread your word of Enable Table, and we could not agree with you more. Julie and I like to say that we can set kids up for success because when we do that, when we take the time, as often as we can, to tell them before what our expectations are, kids are capable and they can meet them, and they feel pretty confident when they do. So, we suggest starting really, really young, even with lists of pictures of things that might need to go into a sports bag or something like that.
Absolutely. I've got so many. My main family room is full of little charts and visual cues, and especially, like you say, like pictures of backpacks and pictures for your pre-readers. I mean, they can look at what they have to do in their morning jobs. Maybe there's a picture of a hairbrush, so they have to brush their hair, and then a picture of the bed, make the bed, put your lunch in your school bag, and then they can go to that visual cue, and that will tell them what their job is to do next. Because I refuse to be that mother in the morning who's nagging and yelling at my kids, do this, brush your hair, clear your plate. Like, I just want my mornings to go smoothly. I want them to start off positively. I want my kids to go to school feeling accomplished, and I found visual cues super helpful for that.
Well, you've almost already answered my next question for you. You've already shared one, but what is another real-life parenting tool that works for you and your family? So you've already shared with us natural consequences. You've already shared with us visual cues. What else works in your family of 6?
Definitely for me as a mom, and as a working mom too, right? We're trying to get so much done in a day. I really do think the not swooping in and the not rescuing, and also around, and one of you touched on this too, about the expectations, setting expectations and having them follow through. So yeah, I certainly make quite young children have chores, and I certainly don't pay them for their chores because next time somebody pays me for making dinner, I'll pay them for putting the stuff in the dishwasher. But that hasn't happened yet. I don't know about you guys. I haven't been paid for making dinner, so nobody's getting paid for washing up. And to me, that's just about creating an environment where it's a democratic family and everybody participates. Everybody's got to pull their weight. And you guys know when you ask them to clean something up, they're like, but I didn't do that. It's like, I didn't ask who made the mess. I'm telling you to clean it up. And I actually have, you two will love this. I have a poster that a friend wrote for me that's hanging up in my main room, and it says, how to get a second chore. Number 1, complain about the first chore. Number 2, ask why a sibling was not assigned to that chore. If somebody's been given a chore and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that chore, I'm like, that's fine. Guess what? You're doing that, and now also you're doing the bathroom. Done. And that's how that goes. Or if I say, I'd like you to unstuck the dishwasher, they're like, oh, well, I didn't see Posey do anything this morning. Great, now you can also restack it. Thanks for that.
So it sounds to me like so much of the way that you're parenting is with intention. You have some clarity around how you're going to respond when things don't go exactly as you anticipated. And that's really, Gail and I talk about parenting with a plan. It's this idea of not losing your cool when things go sideways, because you have an idea that these are the values I'm working on teaching my kids. Yeah. I can keep my calm because I know that I know how I'm going to respond when things don't go.
And they know too. I'm like, dude, look at the board. You know why you got a second chore. Yeah, it's clear. There's really no miscommunication. Everyone knows what the expectations are. So if you blow it, guess what? You pay the consequences. And it makes them, a little more responsible about what they say and how they respond. And because you know what, I just don't want to be in that house where kids are complaining. Like I don't want to listen to that.
Right. The other thing I'm hearing is that you're consistent in your actions. Now, I'm sure not 100% of the time.
Sure.
But you're consistent. And that's
I am consistent. Yeah.
Yes,
I am, and that is
thrive
on that. They absolutely do, but it's so funny because if you talked to my kids, they would say that I did a really good job with the first 3, but I really fell asleep at the wheel with the last 3. So it's so funny to get their perspective. And I often say to them, you don't see and know everything that's going on, and I think it's so funny that that's your perception. But that also, I feel like that gives me a little bit of freedom, because no matter what I do, no matter how I raise these kids, they're going to have their own perceptions of things, right? So I actually have not been completely asleep at the wheel for the last 3, obviously. But my first 3 felt like that I was more strict around bedtimes, and I was more strict. I also had to be because I had so many small humans and whatever. Like, it was times were different. But it is funny that, and it is freeing, I think, for parents to realize that no matter what you do, they're going to have their idea of how it was done. So we are going to hear about things in 20 years that we are like, that was so not a big deal, but for them it was. And then we all have these things too where, maybe your mom said something to you and it really stuck, and she never thought about it again, but it stuck with you your whole life. And the little things sometimes aren't a big thing, and the big things are a little thing, and we don't know how this stuff is going to land. All we can do is our best and be as consistent. And I always say, if we don't get it right, that's okay. We just apologize and do better the next time. Just what we expect from our kids, we should expect from ourselves.
Yes. In fact, we always like to say, just like Jerry Seinfeld says, there's another appetite coming right along. There's another.
Yes.
So if we screw it today, that's fine, so we get another opportunity to do it better tomorrow. And we learn from mistakes just like our kids do. So. Yeah, definitely.
100%. And that's why, and I spoke about this at the conference there at Ignite, and that's why I talk about the mom guilt. Like, I don't do it. I always say, my friends always laugh at me, I gave up mom guilt 4 kids ago.
Doesn't help anybody.
It's pointless. It's meaningless. It doesn't, sitting in bed, staying awake, stewing about all the ways you've screwed up as a mother, not helpful. Just, you know what? Try to do better next time. That's it. Move on. Moving right along.
I know you also talked about setting boundaries so that you can preserve energy and use it really where you want to. Can you speak for a moment about the way that you set boundaries, either with your kids or within your business, so that it's an example for those who struggle with that to get clearer on that?
I spoke a little bit at the conference about the power of saying no. And it's something I don't think women are particularly good at. Like, the kids will come home and be like, I need to bring in some cupcakes tomorrow to school. Well, absolutely not. Like, I do not do anything on one day notice. My kids they would be laughed out of the house if they came home saying I need a dozen cupcakes tomorrow. So they know that there are expectations around timing and giving and preparing. And as I say at home and say here, your lack of planning does not constitute my emergency. And I think that's a great expression to use with your children, to use with your co-workers, to use with your staff. Everybody, just because they're not organized doesn't mean it lands on you as an emergency. So your lack of planning does not constitute my emergency. Remember that little mantra, I think, is an important one for sure. And I think also just really keeping perspective about what's important, what matters, and what doesn't matter. And I know we busy moms, we have these great long to-do lists, but I like to challenge people to come up with a do not do list. What are you doing that you should not be doing? What are you doing at work that you could be delegating? What are you doing at home that you could be delegating? So think about that, and I always use the example of unstacking the dishwasher. I decided several years ago that that is not my time well spent. I have small humans who can unstack dishwashers, so unstacking a dishwasher is no longer on my to-do list. It's on my do-not-do list, because as a kid does that, I can help another kid with homework, or I can go for a walk with the kid and a dog, or whatever. And that, to me, is a better use of my time. And it's a good use for their time, because they need to learn how to do life, real life, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great way to sum things up, Julie, because at Parenting Power, we say, what are you doing for your children that they could be doing for themselves?
Perfect. And my kids know that line. I always say to them, they'll say, "Ma, will you grab me a whatever?" And I'm like, you know my rule. I never do for children what they can do for themselves. That's so funny.
Right, because we are then instilling self-confidence in them.
Yeah.
Julie, this conversation has given us a lot to think about. If listeners want to find out more information about you, where's the best place for them to follow you?
They can find me on our Mabels Labels website, so mabelslabels.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm out there on social media. I love sharing what I write, what new products we're doing, where I'm speaking, all that jazz. So I'm pretty easy to find.
So great. I know that people will want to follow you because there's just so many great nuggets in what you share. Thank you for your time today, Julie, and for all the work that you're doing to help moms in our country.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. That was really fun.
To learn more about Parenting Power, check out our website, parentingpower.ca, visit our Facebook page, or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Parenting Power.